We are continuing on Hilchot Shabbat, and we're starting the halachot of choresh, which means plowing. We started and finished the halachot of plantation, watering, taking care of pruning, all those things when it comes to growing plantation on Shabbat. Now we're going to discuss the halachot of choresh, which is plowing. Now, if you take a literal plow and you plow a field on Shabbat, that's obviously one of the 39 major works of Shabbat, and you're going to be obligated on a biblical level, chayav b'chol she'u, even if you do just a little tiny bit of charisha, is going to be chayav, because in that little bit you could plant one seed, and that would be obviously asur. It's not just plowing, but anything you do in betterment of your field is going to be part of that as well, as we'll see. Now, if you have a mindset to create a ditch which is fit for plantation in your field, of course you're going to be chayav, you're going to be liable for the isur melacha on Shabbat. That's for sure, right? And in the house, if you do it, if you do the same thing in the house, you're not chayav for choresh, you're chayav for boneh. You know, that's an offshoot of building, because again, putting bricks on each other, forming the ground in a certain way. In the house related material, it will be an offshoot of binyan, of building. But says the halacha, how about if I am dragging something on the floor on Shabbat? You know, as soon as it's going to be Chag HaSukkot, a lot of people are going to be outdoors. You know, you're in a yard, in a backyard, in a front yard, an outdoor area, and you want to drag a bench to sit on it. And that may or may not create a charitz, a ditch in the ground of the backyard or wherever outdoor you are. Is that asur or mutar? Mikol makom gorer adam mita kiseh v'safsal. A person could, you are allowed to, drag a chair, a bench, a bed, ben gedolim, ben ktanim, whether they're big, large size or small, provided that your mindset is not on creation of that charitz, that indentation in the ground. If you have no mindset for it, you don't care about it, then it's fine. If he happened to make a little ditch, a little charitz, you don't have to be worried about it. You don't have to be concerned. Says the halacha over here, because you don't have mindset for it. You did not intend to make that. The Torah does not prohibit anything that your mind does not intend to do that. Melacha, the Torah only prohibits things that you mindfully accomplish and do on Shabbat. Now, the minhag has become that you are not allowed to bike on Shabbat. Now, why do we have to say it like this? The minhag has become, right? Because biking, again, obviously we're talking about a place that has eruv for a person that relies on eruv. Because biking, even though that it looks like the bike is carrying you, really who's carrying who? You're carrying the bike, right? Without you, the bike doesn't go. It doesn't have a mind of its own. Maybe at some point you'll have smart bikes, but, well, no, even electric bikes, you're doing it, right? You are the one who is driving it, right? And therefore, it is you that's carrying the bike. So obviously, in a place that there's no eruv, there's nothing to talk about. Scootering, biking, all that is not allowed. Obviously, it's no question, right? Now the question is, if there is eruv, can I bike? So you may ask, what's the problem? What's the problem with biking? Right? I could carry something else. I could carry a bike. What's the problem? What's the problem, Chacham? You may come to fix it, says the Chacham, right? Right. Chacham Bashi. So the answer is correct. The Ben Ish Chai really writes about this, whether because we have a gezerah. Why can't you play musical instruments on Shabbat? Wouldn't that be nice to play musical instruments on Shabbat, soothing, calming? It's asur, we all know. Why is it asur? Because all those who play instruments, you know that you have to fix it all the time, right? I used to play some instruments, and sometimes, the things have to be fixed. So you could snap one of the strings, and you have to put a new strap, and strap a new string, and so on and so forth. There is concern about fixation of the instrument, and therefore we don't allow it, right? Now that Tosafot talk about this, perhaps maybe now it would be different, it wouldn't be different. But says the Ben Ish Chai, say some of the poskim, same would be with a bike. Those who grew up 85 years ago like me, I remember how you would bike, and all of a sudden the chain would be falling out, or it would be stuck, or the wheel would go crooked, and so on and so forth. Different things they have to fix, right? There used to be, for those professional bikers in the crowd, right? It used to be that behind your seat you had a little pouch with tools, right? Still is like that, right? Yeah, Salvak. This is like 5 generations ago when I was growing up. They had actually like a fancy thing behind the thing, and you will fix things. Because why do you have to have it if it's not common? Because it is common. Things happen, you have to fix it, right? So therefore, because of that, I mean, again, that had actually, in mine at least, had a patch in it. You have to know how to fix the tube in the tire, and so on and so forth. Tools and so on. So because of that, says the Ben Ish Chai, well, you're not allowed to do it because you may come to fix it, right? You may come to fix it. And I once spoke about this in somebody that listened to the shiur. I think he had listened to the shiur. Anyways, he was a biker, so he did it on Shabbat, and comes to me afterwards. He was all like white, like a ghost, and he says, you won't believe what happened. I did it, and my chain came off for the first time in history, right? And on Shabbat, and so he had to carry his bike and put it in the shul and so on. But I say, look, well, I don't think this was supposed to come off. I think it's more supposed to be like a message a little bit to a person. But nevertheless, there are those who say the Meshach was choser, was not choser from the thing, because the argument is, well, you can't create your own your own gezerah and say, oh, this is similar to the instruments, and therefore it should be asur. So that's the argument of the Ben Ish Chai, whether or not he was choser from it or not. Rabbi Obadia Hadaya, in his Shuvot Yaskil Avdi, in the back of the last chelek, he brings a shmuah that Ben Ish Chai perhaps was choser. He did retract that psak or not. Therefore, this discussion is mentioned in this way, that Pashat HaMinhag, the minhag has been spread in Klal Yisrael that we don't bike on Shabbat, right? Or on Yom Tov, for that matter. V'domeh lema she'amru Chazal, and this is similar to what the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat. This is a straight-up Gemara in Daf Kuf Yud Gimel in Masechet Shabbat. Im ta'ashiv mi Shabbat raglecha, that the pasuk says, if you hold back your feet from Shabbat, that means don't go the way you go on weekdays. That you're going on Shabbat should not be like going on Yom Chol. So at the very least you have that, even if you accept the argument that biking is not the same on in this generation, and the bikes are safe and usually doesn't happen and so on and so forth. Still, this argument at least is to be made. And even if you're doing it for sorech mitzvah, better to stay away from it altogether. So scooters are a little bit more simple in their operating methodology. There's no chain, there's no argument to be made that the scooter is going to get ruined, right? As far as I know. there are chainless bikes as well, right? Those are glorified scooters, obviously, right? So in its core, it's the same thing. You two wheels and you go on it, and either you have a pedal or you don't have a pedal. That's basically the same thing. Now, that also has become accepted not because of the argument that we mentioned, but because it is simply not Shabbosdik, right? It's not an appropriate kavod for Shabbat. Now, if somebody has an issue with their leg, with their foot, and the only way they could make it to minyan is to do that, and so on, is that something that should be done? Everyone should speak to their local moreh hora'ah on these things. There's no clear cut, because it's very difficult to say scooters are asur on Shabbat, right? Again, my shiur zatzal, Moshe Heinemann, the major poskim in the East Coast, he once told me that he was walking with Ruderman, the author of Avodat Levi, the first founding Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Israel, on Shabbat, in the area that the Rabbanim live next to the yeshiva, they're in Yeshiva Lane, and saw a little girl, going on a tricycle. And he said, "Oh, it's not befitting Shabbat." Now, tricycles have become accepted nowadays for little kids, especially that they use for little kids. But again, adults using scooters on Shabbat has become something that's frowned upon in the from community. Again, because it is not befitting the kavod of Shabbat, you want it to be different. You want it to hiluchach de benachat, as we say in the mizmorim of Shabbat, in the songs of Shabbat, that you want to stroll calmly and in a respectful way. It's different. You dress different, you walk different, you stroll differently. It's something that we maintain. But again, it's not a technicality of halacha, more is something hashkafically that we try to preserve in kavod of Shabbat. And also, again, the argument could be made that, well, if you do this, then what's the difference between this and a chainless bike? And then chainless bike to the bike itself is not that much different nowadays. So you see that the lines become very blurred in that way. Hence, the general accepted custom to stay away from those, if possible. Again, if someone has extenuating circumstance that they need it, God live very far, or they have medical conditions and so on, they should speak with their moreh hora'ah. Says the next halacha, en madichim et karka habayit afilu hu merutzaf. Washing the flooring of a house, even if you have a proper pavement, washing the flooring of a house on Shabbat is something we don't do. Gezerah tu shelo merutzaf, because having a ground level that's not paved properly could be certainly a problem when you wash it off, because it kind of like straightens the ground level, and that's one of the things that people will do for the betterment of their ground for plantation. Now we don't have that. Certainly in a house you don't have that type of a thing. It's not an essential intrinsic problem, but it is a gezerah that Chazal made. It's a drabanan, a rabbinic cautious level of a person staying away from washing even a paved properly, properly, what do you call it, the laid flooring that's nowadays you don't have any dirt, and if you have even asphalt or cement, certainly if you have the granite and the plastic prepared floorings that we have nowadays, the laminate pieces and so on, all of those would be the same. But the brooming and sweeping of the flooring would be mutar if it's paved properly. So you want to sweep the floors, that's fine. Well, wash the floors, that's already different. Now, the reason for it is because brooming is much more of a necessity. Chazal did not necessarily ban that on a flooring that is not dirt and it's properly paved, but washing is less of a necessity, therefore we stay away from it. Now, the question is, if you have a spill in your ground, if you have a problem that something dirtied the ground and you need to wash it off, you need to clean it, you could then pour some water on that area that's dirty and wash it off to clean it with a towel afterwards, with a rag, in a way that you don't have concern for squeezing the water afterwards, and so on. Also, if you had a spill of the water itself, so it's not dirty, but there's water spilled on the floor, or you can't wash the floor. You could clean it up. There's no problem with that whatsoever. And washing the countertop, the ground countertop on Shabbat, that's even though that the counter is really attached to the ground, the cabinets are all attached to the ground, still that's not considered at all part and parcel of this, that you can wash as much as you want. There's no isur in that whatsoever, which leaves us with some of the halachot of Choresh to still cover, which will continue in the next shiur. Hazaku Baruch.